I'm Ellen Copy, and we just watched a story about the International Institute of Akron. We've already spoken with Executive Director Debbie Mae Johnson about the organization, and with us now is Rosamond Smith to tell us about her experience as a refugee in Liberia and how the International Institute has helped her. Thanks so much for being with us.
It was my pleasure.
Now, in the story, we started to see you talking about your past in Liberia. Can you elaborate more on that experience?
Yes. Once again, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. As I said in my story, I've been a citizen of Liberia all my life. And before getting into national politics, I was highly instrumental in school politics. So after I came out of high school, at the time, there was a coup in the country, so nothing was really functioning. We were under a military regime. But come 1985, when the country was set to return to civilian rule, I became a part of the Liberian Action Party, which was the main opposition party in Liberia. And I was more functional and instrumental because I wanted to see my country getting back on course as it used to be. So that's how come I fully participated in politics.
What challenges were you faced with that decision?
Well, there were many challenges because that part of the world, being in the opposition, you like become a target or an enemy. It's not like trying to put views on the table that will be discussed. It's like your view will be detrimental to what the government in power, is trying to foresee.
How did you come across the chance, though, to leave this behind?
Well, actually, the whole thing started in 1989 when a rebel incursion was launched, December 1989, December 24th. So at that time, as I said, I was very instrumental within the Liberian Action Party. So that went on till 1990 when the rebels advanced all the way to the city. When they advanced to the city, we were put behind them because whenever they capture an area, they send the citizens behind them to be in a safe haven as they proclaim it to be. So there I was until I was able to get back to the city, coming from behind the rebel lines, and get back into politics because we were somehow trying to get the country back to civilian rule, trying to see how we bring the rebels together because there were so many factions. Try to bring them together to see a reason to prevail and get people, living normal lives. So that happened until 1996 when the last incursion took place and there was no way I could have stayed. I had to flee because my life was at stake. My husband was also a politician, and he was the chairman of the youth wing department of the party, and I was also on the Monserrado County, constituency, and I was treasurer. I was on the campaign team. I used to go out there, to get members, solicit members for the party. So those were my roles that I played.
What was it like after you left and when you first came to America in a new country?
Well, actually, before coming to America, I had to flee into exile. I was in Sierra Leone for 1996 to 2004. And I tell you, it's a challenge because going into another country, trying to get yourself adjusted with your children was a tedious task. There were a lot of children, parents that went into exile. Some of them could not stand the frustration. Some of the parents became prostitutes. The children did all sorts of things, that are uncountable. But I thank God that when I was in exile, I still had a focus because I knew what I was, faced with. So I still had a focus, even though there was a war in that country also that we went to seek refuge. So it was just like the problems became insurmountable, So I was there until 2004 before coming to the States. But before coming to the States, I was a member of the United Nations High Commission, for refugee. I was one of the refugees, that they had in that country because that's where a lot of Liberians went. Liberians went all over the world, Africa, you name it. So when you join the UNHCR, what they do is they conduct interviews with all the refugees, and you have to have a consistent story. And I didn't even know, neither think, I was going to come this far, because every time they call for an interview, I would be so reluctant. My children would say, "Mommy, go, you don't know what is in that, go." So finally, I went, and what happened, before I did my last interview, the day I was scheduled to do the interview, I had a funeral to attend. So I went to change my date. Fortunately for me, when I got there, I met this, this security that went and told the information, department that, well, Rosamond Smith is here, but she wants to, postpone her interview. So they said, "Oh no, but then we think we can run the interview today." And that's how my interview was run. And I tell you one thing, when I went to that interview, I was a bit skeptical, because I thought they wanted to get something from me that would be detrimental. So then the lawyer said to me, "You are talking so much about your husband being in politics." He said, "I noticed that you got something to say, but you don't want to say about yourself." So I said, "Oh, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to dupe me?" Then he lifted, my first interview. He said, "You see this? If you depend on this, you will never leave this country. You will stay." That's when I buck up. So I started to tell my story about what happened to me. After that, then he said to me, "You have such an incredible story that you never told."
Yes, and then also in the story that we saw, you said after you came here, the International Institute helped you.
Yes, I was coming to that. When we got here, the International Institute was been very instrumental in getting us resettled. Before we got to Akron, we already had an apartment secured, well furnished, with furniture, food, clothing, you name it. Then after they gave us all of that, the next week, we had to go to the International Institute. We had to do orientation. They had to take us
I'm so happy that you were able to be with us, and it sounds like the International Institute really helped you a lot.
Oh, they've helped. It's not only me, but they helped every refugee that comes to this country.
Thank you so much for sharing this experience with us.
You're welcome.
We thank you for being here, and we just finished speaking with Rosamond Smith about her personal story with the International Institute of Akron. Don't go anywhere, because we have more for you coming up after the break.